Our next presentation, Diving Deep, Designing What Isn't Written But Felt, begins with a simple concept. The best design comes from knowing when and how to break the rules. Diving into that concept, slide, we have Dwayne MacEwen, founder, principal, and creative director at DMAC Architectures and Interiors. Dwayne brings more than 30 years of experience shaping award-winning hospitality, lifestyle, and branded environments. Known for his narrative-driven approach, he has led landmark projects, including the American Airlines Premium Lounges, Miami's Concours Club, and more. Let's welcome Dwayne to the stage.
Thank you so much for coming. I have a question for everyone. How many architects or interior designers in the crowd today? Probably a lot. Once you tell somebody that you're an architect or an interior designer, what's the next question? What do you do? What do you specialize in? And I got asked this question a lot, especially early on in my career. And for a long time, I thought I was supposed to have an answer, but I didn't have a conventional one. I went on my own 3 years out of graduate school. So I had a limited experience doing teaching hospitals in London. I'd even worked in an Olympic venue in Barcelona. Most of my experience was, however, doing hospitality work here in Chicago. I grew up on the east coast of Canada building houses. My dad was a contractor, and I came to architecture through construction. Ever since I was 12, I would go to the job site, work with my dad. The first 2 years, I know I was definitely in the way. 4 years later, I knew how to build. I could do everything. And I actually built and sold 2 houses while I was still in high school. More money than architecture, by the way, for anyone that's interested. And I think what was interesting about this whole experience is that when I went to the School of Architecture, I thought I knew what architecture was. I knew how to build. I thought I would have an advantage. But that first semester, I spent unlearning what I thought architecture was. My experience and perceived specialization was stifling my creativity. My experience needed to support what I do, not be what I do. My first client, a celebrity hair guy in Chicago. 3 years out of graduate school, I went on my own. I'd never done a hair salon before. I thought it would be easy. I'd worked for some very high-end designers, and we were doing projects all over the world. He just cut hair. At least that's what I thought. And about 2 weeks into this relationship, doing my first project, I realized that he cared as much about his craft as we do about ours. And that the program that I was given, there were many more answers by my willingness to observe, listen, and learn from what he did. And that was really the trajectory of my career and how we still think about projects today. The program only gives you so much. It's the people that we've designed for and the places we design them in that really matters and allow us to transcend the program and design something meaningful. 30 years later, I can't believe I've been doing it for over 30 years at this point. And a lot has changed. We've done airport lounges, automotive country clubs, fitness resorts. We're even doing a section of the Chicago Riverwalk. And working on an incredible golf course clubhouse in Palm Beach. And what's interesting about all these that you see on the screen, they were firsts. We had never done any of these projects before. We didn't work our way into it. We had earned those projects by moving beyond the program and asking important questions. And I think it's important as well to note that many of these projects, we weren't the client's first choice, sometimes not their second choice, but we were their final choice, and for many we've continued to work with for years and decades. The big idea I want you to take from this talk is that you can do anything. The idea of unlearning from my first semester at architecture school is really having the humility to listen to the client, to learn from the site, and move beyond what the program gives you. To do meaningful work, to ask why, and to ask what if. The idea of unlearning allows us to move beyond the obvious and see things with fresh eyes in everything we do. The Concours Club. How do you start to work on a 77-acre automotive country club in Miami, 10 miles from South Beach, when you've never done one before? We interviewed for the project, and we didn't get it. The owner had hired somebody that specialized in doing these types of resorts. 3 years later, I get a phone call. Why don't you come to Miami with me? I want you to see where we are. He had hired and fired and moved on from a commodity-based firm that came to design meetings with options, not ideas to listen and what was really needed by the site. So I spent the next probably 3 or 4 months flying around the country with the client. I had no idea what an automotive country club was. I didn't know what a paddock was. And for those of you that don't know anything about racing either, the paddock is that inner sanctum of the track. In hospitality terms, it's the kitchen, it's the main dining room, it's where people want to hang out before and after. So as I'm being onboarded and learning about what the concourse or what it means to design an automotive country club, and we're flying around the country, my first experience in a car, riding shotgun, was at NOLA in New Orleans. 3 of us are on track. We're picking cars. I asked for the Lamborghini. They told me I was too big. They put me in a 911 instead. So I'm sitting right seat with a professional driver. We're going incredibly fast. And I tap out after 3, or after 2 laps. We planned on 3. I tapped out after 2. And I think what I learned from that experience, you can't replicate in the program. It was unwritten. And the inspiration from that moment, being on track, being in those credible cars, was all I needed to start looking at the site. And when you looked around the acreage of these utility-type structures, there's no way that they would work at the Concours Club in Miami. Our intent was, I said, what if? What if we treat the entire site as a hospitality project? Almost treating it like an interior. How do we let the buildings and structures define the experience on site? We built a comfort station on pit lane. We built a shade structure adjacent to the track, and even the fuel station, that became a moment. Next slide, please, sorry. The fuel station, why tuck this behind some of the utility buildings? Why can't this be a moment and help activate the site? As the private garages as well. Next slide, please, sorry. The private garages, a half-mile run of private garages. These are typically placed at the perimeter of the track, the periphery. But if we want to fine-tune and change the experience on site, we push them up against the track, changing the acoustics for both driver and spectator, and it totally changed everything. This was a 5-year project for us. And during the last year, wanted to make sure everything was perfect. I did over 80 flights, going to Miami every week. And members were now on track driving. And I started to notice, maybe because I didn't know that much about this automotive culture, I could start to tell which turn they were on by the sound of the track. And one of the members in particular, a professional driver with 4 Indy 500 wins, it just sounded different, more melodic. And we designed this sculpture, 11 turns. What does the sound of the track look like? And the idea of being present on site, not just at concept design or schematic design, but through the entire process. We opened the project, and I actually, on the way up to this talk today, I got a call for interviewing for another one soon. So I will have experience for that one. The Midtown Athletic Club. For anyone in Chicago, I'm not sure if you know it, we had worked with this client for over 20 years, probably going on 25 at this point. And there hasn't been a month in those 25 years that we haven't been either working on something or designing something for them. The first 10 years were spent primarily doing renovations in existing clubs. And about 10 years ago, we got the opportunity to build a 500,000 square foot mega club, the flagship in Chicago, retail, tennis courts, and hotel. It was our first hotel, by the way, as well. And I think what was interesting about this project, in the sense of thinking about program and moving beyond the obvious, was that we could have just as easily taken what we've done for the last 10 years and packaged it in a bigger box. We did not want this to be a big box club. So we decided to not throw the program away, but make it audition for the space. We journey mapped the experience, and we allowed the program to fit within that experience. Next slide, please. And one of the things, the project opened to rave reviews. From a performance, it hit 4-year projections in the first 4 months. And Condé Nast Traveler wrote, the best hotel in Chicago just opened inside of a gym. So it was not bad for our first hotel. But one of the things we had missed in this whole, as much experience as we had, and this was ground up, we didn't ask what happened at night. What happened when the people have to take care of the club, when the members leave? And some of those lessons learned, we took forward to the next project, which is American Airlines. American Airlines in Reagan National in DC. This was our first airport lounge. There was a ton of inspiration. You could see the Capitol building and the Washington Monument. And we were inspired and developed this club. And again, it opened to rave reviews. But one of the things that was important was that when you're being onboarded by companies like American, you can imagine you're handed brand standards that are for design, for signage, for facilities. There's a rule book for everything. And one of the things, as we were doing our due diligence and visiting these clubs, you would see stainless steel corner guards on everything, even the cabinets, and you understand why. Roller bags moving through the site, things are going to get damaged. So we said, what if? Can we break some of these rules with intent? So in the signage, which is really for people navigating the space so they know where to go, and it informed the design in a way that we said, what if the materials and finishes act as signifiers so that you sort of intuitively know where to go, very much like interfacing with your phone. And from a facility standpoint for the corner guard issue, I thought back to when I first interviewed for the job. I flew into DFW, the old part of the airport. And if anyone's ever flown in, you'll know the 8x8 tiles with the 1/4-inch grout joints. And one of the VPs met me at the gate. And remember, we'd never done an airport lounge and we're interviewing for the project. And if anyone's taken a roller bag over wide grout, you know the sound. It sounds like a rumble strip, and you automatically course correct. I was embarrassed. So I thought back to this time, and we ended up treating or protecting, we made an audible deterrent for the corner guards at the lounge. So rather than plastering the entire design, there was a solution that was purely functional, and it became part of the brand standard. Sometimes what you don't do is just as important as what you do. The challenge the program intent by asking what if and why. So the next time somebody asks you, what are you known for? I hope your answer will be that you're known for partnerships. You don't have to have pre-programmed answers. The courage to observe, listen, and learn, and find the best answers to the right questions that unlock what couldn't be defined but had to be discovered. Thank you.